Hey guys and gals, today we will be talking about how to build a Linux web server, also known as a LAMP server to some people out there. This event was recorded on November 11th, 2011, but it was actually recorded after, or at least this section was recorded after, because I was a bonehead and I forgot to hit the start recording button for the podcasting. So we will be going through, I did capture most of the podcast session, but instead I created some PowerPoint slides to cover the information that was presented during the first 10 minutes. So for you out there, probably when I said LAMP server, you're like, what the heck? Is this a server plus leg lamp equals LAMP server? No, not really. It's actually an acronym. So that means it's a Linux server running an Apache web server with MySQL database server, and it's also got PHP installed on the server so that we can run our PHP web applications on it. So our Linux distribution is CentOS, and this is the same operating system that we used. I would highly recommend taking a look at Introduction to Linux if you do not build a server yet. And we also have another article that explains on how to install VMware Player on your machine. The links will be down below. So with our Linux CentOS server, we have Apache installed on top of it. Apache's been around for a very long time, pretty much since the dawn of the internet, and they are extremely popular for web server choices. I forget the exact percentage, but they've been around for a very long time. You can run Apache on Windows as well on Linux, but it's very popular on a Linux platform. Pretty much any distribution that you find and you install Apache or install a web server, it's probably going to use Apache. Now, since they've been around for a long time, that means their documentation is also very, very powerful. It's got a wealth of information to it. It's very easy for people to learn. A lot of the steps and problems and all that has been documented or figured out already. So with Apache Web Server, if we're going to run an application, we need somewhere to store all the information. And we do this with the database. And with MySQL, we are able to freely download this software, use it. MySQL is a very powerful open source database platform or engine that a lot of people use throughout the world. There are other solutions which we'll get into later, but it works very closely with Apache and as well as PHP, which is the language that a lot of web developers use to create web applications. Facebook uses it. They reinvented on how PHP works. They accelerated it and actually compiled it down to a lower level so that its performance would move much faster. Now the way that PHP works is a little bit different compared to how we have like a traditional software or any like HTML, we'll say. How HTML works is it's sent to the actual client and the client interprets the HTML. If we sent PHP to the client, nothing would happen. That client would not know how to interpret the PHP. PHP is a server-side language, so when a client makes a request to a PHP page, the server generates the code, goes through, or well, the code's already there, but it generates the HTML based upon the inputs of the user or the actions that the user wants to take. So it's a little bit different, and processing this PHP could have put a little bit more load on your server compared to just running just strictly HTML. The similar products that we have is IIS. That's Microsoft. That's a role or a feature that you can install with Server 2008, R2, or even their older products. Nginx is another popular web server. It's actually real new, not really new, I should say. I should say young. That's a web server that is claiming to be much more efficient than Apache as well as IIS. So if you get a chance, dive into that and take a look. We also have PostgreSQL, which is another open source community. And then I forgot to add on there Microsoft SQL. That's Microsoft's version of their database, which of course you have to pay for. And we also have ASP.NET, which is Microsoft's competitor to PHP. That's another server-side language. So why do we care? You know, it's very, very important, but why does the whole world care? We understand the importance. So obviously, right off the bat, just like what we said in the last presentation, is it's going to save a ton of money. So if we built a application on a Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP server, or a LAMP server, all we'd have to do is go download CentOS, free, download Apache, free, download MySQL, free, and install PHP, which is also free. Now for me to develop for PHP, I can just use Notepad and start typing in my PHP code, and voila, I have my first PHP application. Now let's say we wanted to build that for ASP.NET. First we have to go buy server 2008 R2, which costs about $900, and then you have to install the role, which it's not necessarily free. It's included with your license. So we go and install IIS, and then we have to go buy Microsoft SQL, which could cost, it varies. It depends on how large your environment is. And then we have to go install ASP.NET, which they do have support for that out of the box, but that's included in the license. But if you want to develop for it, you have to buy their, I believe it's like Visual Studio or .NET Studio. You have to buy their developer tools and install that. Not only that, you have to buy the Windows XP license or Windows XP, Windows 7, whatever you're running. You have to buy that license to run that application. So the cost can add up real fast. It all depends on the business needs. Sometimes, PHP isn't really the best to work with, but it's been out for a long time, and a lot of businesses don't choose it because they're not comfortable with it, or they have guys that know ASP and they just don't want to learn PHP. So it really all depends on the business. So we understand why it's important and why we should care. Oh, I forgot to cover extremely powerful. Like the LAMP server is very powerful. Not only does it save a lot of money, it is equally powerful, arguably if not more powerful than ASP. Depend on what you're doing. But a lot of the top-notch web developers out there are PHP. More corporate stuff is ASP, and that's mainly for Active Directory integration, but you can still do that through PHP. So the best thing on where to learn is simply by doing. It's something that you have to maintain a discipline for, to keep trying, because you want to fail in a test environment. You want to make the mistakes, and it's going to be critical mistakes that will make you rebuild. And if you keep rebuilding and rebuilding, you will learn a lot more. Start to write down which steps you're taking and figure out if that's the best way, and keep critiquing that list. I have a list that I created that we actually use today. You can find those down below, but remember that my list is still going to change. So you can get started with my list on how I build servers right now, but I'm still learning as I'm going as well. So those notes will change as well, and it also depends on your needs. So now this is pretty much all that we covered in the first about 10-15 minutes that I spoke. So we want to go into actually building a server. So if you do not have a server built already, I would go down below this video and there should be a link to the introduction to Linux. Go through and watch that. That will teach you how to install the actual CentOS. We're using version 5.7 to play around with the server, and then you can kind of follow along and build it on your own machine. And then make sure that it's set to bridged mode, and then that way that inside a VMware player, make sure it's set to bridge mode. That way that you can connect to your actual CentOS machine and see, through the web browser, you can connect to it and see if your web server is actually working. So let's go ahead and we will move on to part 2. Alright, so I'm going to open up PuTTY here, connect to my server, log in as root, and put in my password. So the first thing that we're going to do is on this sheet here that you guys have, we have, should be under Linux commands. This sheet here, we're going to start with this command, RPM. RPM is a command that will, check packages, see if they're installed, we can erase them, the whole 9 yards. So, first thing that we want to do is RPM space -q space HTTPD, like what I have here. Okay? We're going to press enter, and it looks like we have Apache installed. 2.2.3 is on there. That was actually a mistake. Why would we want to learn how to build a web server when it's already installed? It's kind of pointless to do that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to get rid of that package. We need to run a command to delete it. Now we ran RPM-Q, which means query. It's going to ask, is this installed? And it returned HTTPD. Now I can type in RPM space -q, and I can put in like MySQL which is a service name, and it says package MySQL is not installed. Okay, so if it's not installed, it's going to tell you that. HTTPD is the Apache server. Does anybody know what the D means? Daemon. And that's Linux's thing. Yeah, it's daemon. DAEMON. It's their form of saying it's a server or a service that.
Where would you find that at?
Huh?
Where would you find that abbreviation at? Like, how do you know that's what it's
That's what they call it. Yeah, that's what they call it in their official package. So yeah, it's not.
And that just means that it's a service that responds to HTTP requests.
Yep, exactly. In Ubuntu, you use sudo space apt -get space install space Apache 2. So it's messed up. Yeah. So welcome to the Linux world. Going from Red Hat to Ubuntu is very different. Some people say Ubuntu is easier. I learned CentOS first, so I don't know if I'm just more comfortable with CentOS. I look online, and a lot of people like CentOS as their server rather than Ubuntu.
Which one is being used the most?
I would say CentOS. Ubuntu's coming up, but I don't know if it's going to take over. I don't know. I don't think I'm at a position to give an accurate thing either, because Amazon AWS, the Amazon Web Services, they're running Ubuntu, and they're actually configuring configuring their own Amazon release based off of Ubuntu, because it's got newer technology in it. Remember, and Amazon AWS is a new thing. So what we want to do is we want to do a command to remove the package. So we can do RPM-E and then HTTPD. But it's going to say, hey man, something else is needed. System config HTTPD relies on HTTPD to be installed. So you can't remove it. Just remember, this computer works for you, so there's probably a command to get rid of it. So let's do this. RPM-E, which is erase, and then we do -- no deps. So it's going to force it. It's going to say, I don't care about the dependencies. Just get rid of it. HTTPD. And it should return. Whenever you press return in Linux and it comes up with another prompt and nothing else happens, that's probably good. So what we can do is we can do RPM --Q HTTPD, and it is not installed. Okay? So now what we can do is we can go ahead and we're going to add our repos. Now go ahead and pull up server side up, serversideup.net, and then we have, hi Shotan, how you doing? Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. Yeah, we're in the midst of yeah, thank you. So go ahead and I posted some notes on the on build a Linux web server. So you should be able to go ahead and just click on that. And I got the commands saved for you already on some of the notes that we'll have. Okay? So what this is we have the command wget. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming maybe webgit is the proper term. What it's going to do is going to download something from the internet. So we have download and then the direct file path to it. So let's break down this URL. http:// so we're going over to the websites, dl.iuscommunity.org, and IUS Community is a community of developers that help speed up some package adaptation. So we have to run PHP 5.3. Well, I don't think we have to, but it's recommended that we run PHP 5.3. Dan, can I have you verify that PHP 5.3 is awesome?
I can't say it's awesome depending on what kind of programming I do. PHP 5.3 is for those familiar with programming is more object-oriented, but PHP 5.2 supports more of the legacy functions that you use in C.
Okay, so 5.2 is more a little bit legacy, 5.3 is more object-oriented. Okay, that's good to know. To us infrastructure geeks, it makes some sort of sense. But that's why we have people like Dan, right? They can tell us all the cool stuff. So 5.3 is something a little bit new. Yeah, I know there is this big debate over, do I run 5.2, 5.3? The reason why I bumped our servers up to 5.3 is because I was running into issues that actually required 5.3. And 5.3 is completely backwards compatible with 5.2, correct? No?
5.3, well, 5.2 is the only time I've had issues with 5.2 connecting to a Microsoft SQL database compared to 5.3. 5.2 has a function in PHP that will connect natively. 5.3, not so much, and there's kind of more issues.
Okay. Okay, so now we have the politics between 5.2 and 5.3. And you got to remember, this is a community-driven project. So getting 5.3 in the official CentOS repository, probably not going to happen for a while until these politics settle. So what we're doing is we're going out to the IUS community, and then we also have the REMI package. We have the IUS, the EPEL, and the REMI repositories that we use to get the version numbers that we want. So we'll just remember those for now. So what we're doing is we're downloading RPMs that when we execute these RPMs, they will configure our server that when we run yum, remember yum, to look at those servers for those versions as well. Does that make sense? Bill, you look a little confused. Okay, okay, so do you get why we're doing this?
These are setups.
Yeah, well, no. Okay, so when I do, yeah, okay. All right, time to go with visual. People on the podcast are going to be kind of screwed because I can't do visual on the computer. All right, so we have our Linux box. Right here, right? And then we have the internet up here. And then we have our repository. Our CentOS repository is over here. The official CentOS repository built in to our Linux distribution. Okay? So when I run the command yum space install httpd, it's going to go up to the internet and say, okay, look in here, and it's going to pull Apache out of here, the RPM out automatically, and bring it back, download it, and install it.
So what this is,
So,
just to configure Yum to know where to look?
Yep. So then I'm going to say on these other repos, like we have the IUS and the EPL, it's pretty much adding those here. IUS, and then we have EPL, and then REMI. So it's going to check those too, because if we do yum space install space PHP, you'll see it'll kick back version numbers. They're going to be 5.2. We don't want 5.2. We want 5.3. So we have to kind of fudge around with where it's going to go. So I'm going to do yum space install space PHP 5.3, and one of these packages are going to be able to actually go, oh, I know what you guys are talking about.
So we'll go look at all three of those because we both.
Yep. Yep. Actually, we're going to force it on one. I'll show you how we force it.
So what does wget do?
Wget down. We're going out to the internet and downloading an RPM, and that RPM is going to, when we execute it, it's going to configure our local machine to look at the additional repositories. It's going to get that prepped. It's going to get it ready for our machine to look at it. One of them, we're actually going to force it to look specifically at one repo. Okay? That makes sense? So, let's go ahead and you can copy and paste these commands right from here. Just copy them all. Right click, copy, click on this, right click, and it automatically pastes it. So if it zooms through, go ahead, press enter, because it won't do the enter on that. But here it says resolve, connecting to HTTP request sent, awaiting response, got a response, okay, it's an RPM, and it saves it. So remember, we're going to do ls to list what's inside of our directory. How do we check which directory we're in? PWD, print working directory. So if we do ls, we have the, can you guys read that okay? Or is that a pain in the butt? Let me change my settings here. I don't think it will. Modify.
Yeah, you can. You just use it in a typeface.
Oh, I do? Okay. Well, let's try this. There. You can read that, right? Alright, so in the green are my RPMs. Alright? And then, so they're in that folder. So now, our next command, what we want to run, if we take a look at our Linux command sheet here, or I'm sorry, our procedures that I'll have, if we go down to, if we go down, where do we go? So, okay, we're on number 9 right now, right here. So we downloaded that. This command right here,
And I didn't put that one on server side up because I wanted you guys to type this whole thing in. Don't worry. We're going to use our trick, remember? So look at number 9, letter E. We're going to do RPM space dash IVH. Dash I means install. V means verbose. This means it's going to tell me what it's installing. And H means hash. You'll figure that out in a second. I'll show you what it all means. So do space, and then we're going to install these 3 packages here. So remember our shortcut command. We can do EP, and there's nothing else with EP in there, so I press tab. And then you just make sure there's a space after that RPM, and we can actually install all 3 RPMs in one command. So IUS, you can just put in IU, tab, puts it in there. Okay? And then RE, tab, and it's there. Everybody got that?
It doesn't matter what order you list.
Nope, it doesn't matter.
So we could have just typed asterisk period RPM.
Yeah, you could have done that as well.
Just want to make sure that was
So go ahead and press the enter button. And that's what I mean by hashing. Okay, let's take a look at this command. We have the RPM -I, so we're installing, verbose, which means it's going to kick stuff back to us, and H, which means hash. So did you see it's like a loading bar going across? It tells us on what percentage it's at. That's a good thing to have. We like to see status reports as things are installing. Unlike some Microsoft things where you hit F5 on a event log thing and wait for a certain event ID to pop up. It's really annoying. I hate it. So now we got that installed. So what did those packages do?
They pointed Yum to our repository.
Yep, we just added to Yum when we use Yum to also look here as well. So let's go ahead and install HTTPD. Okay, Yum space install space HTTPD. Press enter. Loaded plugins, loading mirror speeds from cached host file. So when you first do this, it actually checks which one's the fastest mirror. And these are the mirrors that it's using. And we're going through. It's test. Okay, so we have EPEL. That's one of the packages that we went through. So it's actually testing the speed, I believe, on that. Or it could be downloading a cache of what it has on there. So now it's doing IUS, running transaction check. Mitchum.
Can you elaborate on what it's doing right now?
Well, right now it's going through and it's working with the mirrors. It's updating itself. Looks like it's updating its file list. I think that might be working with like what's available on those mirrors. It could be updating all of that.
You're still installing.
Yeah, right now we're installing Apache. HTTPD equals Apache web server. So it's going through and it's getting all the repository cache information. Yep.
Apache server only used with Linux.
No, they do have Apache for Windows. That's a good question. They do have Apache for Windows. You can actually install PHP on a Apache Windows machine. You can also install it on IIS, which is Internet Information Services, which is provided by Microsoft. How many of you are in 331, the server admin class? That's what you guys were playing around with, is IIS. I do not like IIS. It's I've dealt with some applications that were Java based and integrated to it, and man oh man, did it make things angry. Like, it's nice if things work well, but I don't know, I just didn't like it that much. Sometimes you'll need that in an enterprise level, They have ASP applications, but you know the advantage to Apache, you get the same power, arguably, if not more power than IIS, and you get it for free. This is, you know, if you're running IIS, you need to buy a server license, which is $900. You gotta buy the hardware. Then you gotta buy, you know, if you're running Active Directory, you have to buy client access licenses. Then you gotta buy a Windows license for them to run Windows, and then you know, then you gotta buy. Dan, don't you have to buy like something to run ASP?
Yeah, everything you run on IIS.
Yeah, even the developer tools. How much do developer tools cost?
Oh, jeez. I remember when it was like, well, you have to buy a $700 development kit, you know, education, just to do the ASP Net Visual Studio. I mean, as education students and people in education get for a really big discount, but if you're out in business, it's outrageous.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you're paying to run it, you're paying to develop for it, and then there's a new version, so you have to pay to go to that. You know.
That, like, you can get the express version, or you can get the beginning version, which is like $100, but none of the stuff will work if it's like, for example, developing a piece of software that requires different
Yep.
components. You have to have a professional version.
Yep. What do you need to run a LAMP server? You need to have a piece of hardware. That's the only thing you're pretty much expending that on. With enterprise, they need support. They'll put their money out there. But if you guys learn Linux and you are fluent in Linux, guaranteed 80 grand. Guaranteed. That's a conservative salary. You know, you can make $150,000 easily if you are a Linux guru and you get in the right company. The companies are moving from mainframe to you know, they've moved from mainframe to more of like Unix, and then like that doesn't work out well, so now they're moving to Linux because there's no value in spending all that money. You know, you get in the enterprise level, that's just one developer license, you know, and then you have to buy his OS and all that other stuff, so it gets very pricey. What you need to develop for PHP, you need Notepad. That's all you need. You can make your whole application in Notepad if you're good. There are tools that'll speed it up, but that's all you need. So, and Linux, very low overhead. For us to run Server 2008 R2, I was pushing a gig and a half of memory for every machine that you guys were running. On this, I'm doing 512, and that's gracious. I could run this at 384 and be fine for what you guys are running. And that gig was already the cut down level because Microsoft recommends 4. So I cut that into 25%, and it still ran because we're only on one actual like server, one user type deal. So that's just a heads up. Save up on a lot of hardware and everything. Linux is very difficult to learn at first because we think in Microsoft ways. But then once you start to get used to Linux, it all speeds up. Next thing you know, it's the best thing ever. So I'm still in that learning curve yet. Mitchum,
What's the best way to learn Linux?
get a book.
Keep saying just do it, but
Get a book, read, build a virtual machine, official documentation, talk to friends. That's the way to do it. Dan had his hand up.
And then he said, learn books. When I started learning Linux, I got a book called Linux Bible. It simply just went through a high-level overview, explained the directory structure. I know Jay probably went through some of that before I came, but knowing the directory structure, then knowing where things happen. Like Etsy has all the
Yep.
configuration files, well, most of them. Then there's like init.d where all the daemons start and stop. Okay, now you know where things are. You can start and stop them. Now you can find and where everything's starting up. See the prop, CROC, okay, jump around and mess things up like breaking before you learn.
Yep. I taught myself CentOS over the summer. Just rebuilt. So Kevin, he went out onto sourceforge.net. It's a great link. Very community driven, open source dudes. SourceForge had a free book 500-page PDF,
Yep.
free, absolutely free. Kevin's been reading a chapter every night. Getting used to Linux will benefit you, even if you're a Microsoft administrator. Like just understanding and how the systems work and the best practices that go into each will help you in your daily job. Even if you aren't a technical person, if you work your way up and you're a CIO, understanding the technical stuff will make you more successful. None of this project management, like high-level understanding of processes. No, you need to understand the process and you need to understand the technology. So open up a book and read. It's very painful at first. As soon as you get through that first hurdle, the rest of them are easier, I promise. So, and just stay with it too. You know, talk to friends, keep showing up here. You guys got a +1 already because you're motivated enough to show up on a Friday morning on and learn Linux. So, all right, so at this screen here, enough rambling on that. Kev, you have a point?
Yeah, there's just one more thing I was going to add to that. What the book is saying that I downloaded, one chapter is maybe like 10 pages, full of screenshots, maybe up like to 20. It literally will take you half hour to get through. And you can finish this book in about a month. In a month, you can learn what we'll probably learn in year's class after like 4 semesters. So just to kind of put it in perspective, you will crank through this thing at one chapter a day. And it's almost no time commitment. It's just something I do before I go to bed. And like, already what he's talking about, I know some of you guys are lost, but in the first 80 pages, I understand so much more. I mean, that's only like 3 or 4 days worth of reading this book.
Mm-hmm.
What do you use the forge?
SourceForge here. I'll.
And so far, it's only just been about navigating the system and learning what the different commands do. But even that is just so much more helpful, because otherwise I'm just kind of like typing here, I don't know what I'm doing. But even after just this first 1 page, I'm like, wow, okay, I get it.
Kev, what's the title of the book?
The Linux command line? Yeah. Something like that.
Oh, it's an actual book. It's not the community written.
Well, it's.
The book is written really
If you want
simple.
community-written stuff, you look at the official documentation. We have, I think it's wiki.centos.org. This is the official documentation. Use Google. You're going to run into an issue. You're going to be extremely upset because it ran into an issue. I mean, last night, I built a lot of LAMP servers, and all of a sudden I ran into an issue last night. And I had to troubleshoot it, you know, and it took us probably about 15, 20 minutes to figure it out.
Yep.
Then we finally figured it out on how it was running. Use Google. Bill.
What's a LAMP server?
LAMP. Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. LAMP. Got it? All right. So, let's go back to here. So let's install HTTPD, right? Everybody still has this? Okay to download? Yes. Goes ahead, installs. Now right there is a version number, 2.2.3, and we're installing the 64-bit edition, okay? So, now let's install MySQL. Yum install MySQL MySQL-server space MySQL-devel. And you're going to run into these, like, everybody's like, why don't you just do MySQL? And then it just installs MySQL. Well, it needs a MySQL client.
What was the last MySQL?
It's on number 11A. Devel, D-E-V-E-L. So everybody's like, why can't I just hit MySQL, it installs everything. Believe it or not, MySQL needs a client to connect to itself. You know, you have your server, but even though that you're the server, you need the client installed on your server to connect to itself. And then we also need some developer tools, which some things might make calls to, or you know, if you need to make some changes. We also have some tools that we can use to manage MySQL. So, I'm sorry, what's that?
Use the command that I missed.
Number 11A.
So type in
Yum space install, and then you have MySQL, MySQL Server, MySQL Devel. Please raise your hand when you have this command done. Bill's got an error.
It's probably a typo. Matter if already download started.
Huh?
Matter if the download started.
What's it saying? Why would yours be different?
I got that.
You got 30. Did you type everything right? Now going through and just saying, just hitting it, and then just getting to this screen. Now we did issue 3 commands at once. So we could have a typo on one, and it could throw in an error message just saying, oh, don't know, can't find it. We'll skip and just keep going. So you got to make sure that this is what you want installed. So see how it automatically goes through? Let's see where my command is. It runs all these dependency checks. So it runs all these, updated, 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 open SSL, and all these other things. You should have this list. Do you have this here?
Yep.
Okay. How about you, Jeff?
I did games and
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's probably where it got angry.
Actually, my list is really simple.
Huh?
My list starts with the MySQL Devel. I don't have the name MySQL. The first 2 on your.
Do you have 14 packages set to be installed or updated?
Where is it? Oh, I see. They're just in different order.
Okay, that could be it. All right. I'm going to wait until everybody's at this screen. Everybody good? Got it, Jeff? All right. So go ahead, Y, enter. And it's going to go ahead, download them all. And what it does is it downloads the smallest one first and the largest one last. I don't. Huh? What do you mean clear something? Here, let me come take a look at your command while that's downloading. All right. Oh, so you did the other ones?
Yeah, I did the other ones wrong.
Okay. Did you hit yes to install these or no?
Yep.
Oh, you installed those? Because it's probably just grabbing the MySQL stuff. You should be good,
Alright.
I think. What you can do is you can reissue the command as well, and it will just say, oh, whatever, we're already installed or updated. So let's take a look at your command. Yum install dash. Okay, so now this. Can everybody see his screen here? Oh wait, it killed it. Never mind. Sometimes, all right, now hit Y on that and start that download. Sometimes if you cancel out, remember I gave you guys the keyboard shortcuts last week on how to, it's pretty much like the snap button. It's like, I got to get out. You hit Control Z, Control C, Control D, Escape, Q. One of those things are going to work. I don't know what's the logic behind it, but I always hammer on all those keys when I need to stop it. If you stop Yum, it actually still runs it in the background. So if you try to reissue a command, it will say Yum is already in use, and it'll give you a process ID, a PID, a process identification number, and you can actually take that number. It's a 4-digit number, and then you kill the process. So it's kill space -9 space that process ID, and it's kind of like going into the task manager and hitting the end process button. Does that make sense? So that's a good thing to kind of remember if you're ever in that situation. So we're still installing MySQL Server here. I'm sure everybody else's installs are going out because we're all nailing the server at the same time. But, 150K, not too shabby. So anybody have any questions so far? Are we learning something today?
Instead of typing yum
Awesome.
install, can we type yum-i?
Yum, I don't know if you can. No, I always do yum install. I've always seen it yum install. But you'll see there that I have yum-y on some of those commands. That forces a yes. If it asks anything, it just says yes. So remember where it stops and says, are you sure you want to do this? We press Y and press enter. You can actually force it. If you're running like a script, you can just hit yum space dash Y space install space HTTPD, and if it comes up with anything, it's just going to install it. But good thing we didn't, because if we did that on Jeff's, then we would just assume, oh yeah, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden we go install something, it's like, oh crap, it's not working. So the only reason why I did that is because, do you know who can guess how many times it took to make this list? How many servers? I would say close to about 10 to 12 servers I rebuilt until I built this and put them in order. This was just an ongoing list of changing commands, the commands that went in, the commands that needed to get moved somewhere else in different order. I remember I ran into an issue that I was installing MySQL, and then if I ran it after the HTTPD or something like that, or maybe it was PHP, it was installing 5.5, but I needed 5.0. Yeah, so it all is dependent on the order. So I changed this document over 9,000 times.
How did you figure that out? Did you
Trial and error, troubleshooting.
place out there that tells you that?
I mean, there's going to be places that'll tell you how to do exactly everything. Then there's going to be places that you're going to take value of a certain piece and a value of another piece, and then you're going to have to use your common sense to apply those pieces together.
And it was just because of the order installation, then it wanted a newer version because it was something else first.
Yep. So what did I do? Rebuilt the server, went through every procedure again, and started going, okay, what's going wrong here? How am I getting 5.5? So I got to change my screensaver so it doesn't pop up so fast. All right, so we got MySQL installed. Okay? Now, we get to install PHP. Look at number 11B. Look at all of this crap. My God. I am not a developer, and I was extremely unhappy when I saw this. I thought yum install PHP would do the trick. Hell no. This is why we get paid the big bucks, because you got to figure out all this stuff. You want to know where most of my time was spent? Figuring out this list. My God. Damn developers.
Every single one of those is used well.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem.
You don't have SML, you can parse XML,
Yep.
go back and reconfigure the page.
So what we have on this one here is yum -- enable repo REMI. That's familiar, right? That's the one that we installed. So we're looking on the REMI repo that we installed to install PHP 5.3, which would make sense, PHP 5.3. Then all of a sudden you get this PHP 5.3 pair. It means nothing to an infrastructure guy. CLI, common, devel, GD. These are all common libraries, like GD, common, CLI. Pair is another like compilation of all these other procedures that goofy developers use. Yeah, something. So we have to go through. Mcrypt is something that PHPMyAdmin needs. That's some sort of encryption. Does it decrypt the file or something, or
I think
does it actually? Oh, it's security. Okay. We have memcache, which is some. I know what memcache does exactly, but I don't know what PHP memcache does. Is that the same memcache?
I think so. Like,
Okay. Yeah, so that's more of like speeding up servers. Instead of loading information a lot, it actually just goes ahead and caches the information. So yeah, this list took forever to build. Figuring out which applications I was running and all the other requirements, making sure they're coming from the same. Finding the repository was fun in itself. Mitchum.
say, okay, this is all the libraries that you really need to make it work.
Yeah.
Could you do that?
If somebody held your hand across the whole way, it wouldn't be as fun. So this was a compilation of a lot of websites, and everybody's running a different environment. You know, you're running 5.3 is different than CentOS 5.7, and then you have you know, maybe some guys upgrading from PHP 5.1 to 5.3. It's a whole different ball game. And then they're running, you know, you're just running WordPress, but the other guy's running MindTouch, and then this guy's running PHP MyAdmin, but then he's like, what the heck? MySQL sucks in itself, so I'm going to use PostgreSQL. So that's the thing about Linux. Yes, it's open, but the thing about being advantage if you're closed is everybody's using the same stuff. Being open, everybody's using something else because they think their way's better.
5.j,
Huh?
We're using 5.j.
5.j, yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is pretty much what I found to be common, that the applications that I run, which probably what you guys will be running as well, WordPress, PHP MyAdmin, this is what's worked out best for me.
Seriously, all kidding aside, this is just your recipe, right?
Yeah, these are my notes that I took. All of these notes that I handed out are notes that we used to have a web administration class that went through all this. It's a semester long, awesome class. But I took notes, and these are my personal notes, and I'm not a note taker. So when I'm taking notes, I mean it. Aaron.
Are there a lot of related libraries that we're not installing?
I think there's actually one that I'm missing. These notes will change. I know they will. I'm not saying I'm a Linux genius. I'm far from certified. But you know, there was one in PHP MyAdmin that I know that had an issue, saying I wasn't getting all the features, but the feature that it was talking about I didn't need, so I didn't really care. So
Because, you know, with most software installs, you know, it's like typical, you know, custom
yeah,
everything.
yep,
Everything's an easy thing to check.
yeah, they don't. Dan?
The only one that really applied to me is like, how long have you been doing PHP? I've only had to install one other module, now it's connected to Microsoft database with PHP.
Yeah, and that's not too common on most web servers. Eric? I don't know how to write PHP. Dan will hopefully be going through something, you know, that we could actually use these web servers. I'm actually going to remind me, guys, do not leave this room until you write down on a piece of paper which server is yours. Okay? Because I want this to be your server. And fortunately with Linux, I'm able to do that with the hardware that we have. So we can actually have you guys go through, and this is your server. Nobody else has access to it. You know, if you want to change your password, go ahead, but I'm not going to be able to support you. So just don't hack other people's servers. I trust you guys. So, yeah. So we'll to get back to your question, how well do you need to know PHP? I can kind of read it. To write it, I don't care about. That's why I got Dan. Dan can regurgitate it. I think Dan and I have really serious conversations, and he'll talk to me in Java or some sort of like PHP statement, which is really, yeah. And I actually understand him. So it's good as a network administrator, even if you're on the infrastructure side, you need to understand programming. Because you know what gets even more powerful than this? This is just the tip of the iceberg. You got to remember. Like professional Linux admins, don't sit down and type these commands. If you're going to do it more than once, you're going to script it. And we can script this whole entire process. I could build a CentOS server, and I could either A, download the command manually and just run it, or I can compile it in my own thing, and when I install that server, all of it's installed. It's standardized. It's consistent. I know exactly what's going to be on that server, and it's saving me an hour every time that I go through and build the server. So understanding scripting, that's where if you want to be that $150,000 a year administrator, scripting. You're going to have to do some kind of programming. But don't worry, it's not as complicated as, well, it can get, but is like, actual development of like PHP where you're creating these functions and all that, but it will benefit you in some stuff. I've seen some really crazy bash scripts, that's what they're called, to manage a server. So we might go through some of that at a later date, maybe like a intermediate Linux administration. So, all right, so we got PHP 5.3. So you can go ahead and actually pull this up. I know that you guys didn't want to type all that crap in because I didn't. So go ahead and you can go to server side up and just copy the command. Oops. There we go. Copy that. Right click copy. And then right click and it'll paste it for you in there. And just remember, when you're outside the official repository, just remember, every repo isn't going to be the best one. These guys seem to be pretty community driven, very close to the CentOS community. But notice like the domains that we're getting it from. I think I saw like applesauceman.com or something like that. So always remember that when you do these, oh, see, I got a couple that aren't available. Huh, but it still works. That's weird. Well, we'll see if we have that issue. So these are all the packages that's going to install, so go ahead and press yes.
Where did you see it's not available?
When I scroll up to the top,
Where there's no package.
yeah,
PHP
there's 3 of them that aren't
They're
available.
available.
I don't even know what PECL-APC, and I don't need memcache.
Apparently not. We're not getting it.
Yeah. And then pair might not be bad to install. What's pair again, Dan? That's like another common community
I
thing.
just looked up the PHP extension and application repository. So what pair does is like if you're going to work with images or something more complex than standard PHP, there's a whole bunch of already created libraries that are out there for you. And PECL is the PHP extension community library. Same thing as pair, it's just a different sort of community.
Yep.
And you just get, XML, parsing, images, audio, all that stuff has libraries available.
So, like I said, these notes that I have are continuously editing. I got to go back and figure out how the hell do I install PHP 5.3 pair. So, Bill.
So while this stuff was installing,
Yep, no problem.
not too off topic, but you're talking about community and stuff and out here and all this stuff out there in the community. How many people are out there in the community of like thousands or tens of thousands, or is it 100 guys doing this? Or 10 guys?
Well, just like a nonprofit organization. I'm on a water ski team, and there's about 120 people in the club. There's about 10 people that drive that club. But those 110 people still come back and make some sort of difference and change in it. So it's no different than any other nonprofit, volunteer. Some of these guys get paid. Look at how powerful it is for a group of guys to get together and say, hey, you know what, I'm sick of paying for tools so I can develop for it. I'm sick of buying all these licenses. Let's do this. And you know what, let's release it for free. What did Linus Torvald, right?
Yep.
He's the guy who created Linux, college project. Went home and wasn't he supposed to write an operating system? And
He got access to Unix servers, I think, when he lived in Europe, and he started building programming when he was like 10 years old on a Commodore 64.
yep.
And from there, he just started developing Linux because he loved Unix, which Linux is based off of, and he went to town developing it, got tons of offers for millions and billions of dollars to compete with Microsoft commercially, and
Yep.
turned him down and had to succeed to do.
So for him to turn down that kind of money, I think I know it was more powerful for him to say no at that time, because now Linux is really starting to shake some companies, especially now since they're going, we don't have the money, we're cutting down an IT budget. Why are we paying all this thousands of dollars to run these crappy websites when we can remake it in PHP and run it for free? Yeah.
Is there any idea of how many people
Oh, how many people?
contribute to these repositories? Or
I would say millions.
LinuxQuestions.com is like a big one. They have 100,000 users or something like that. You
Yeah. There's, like, I don't know if there's an exact number, but, I mean, look at on the internet, man. There's Linux support everywhere. There's forums scattered all over the place. Think of it like a big nation, right? Our nation is our distribution. And then we got all these small communities everywhere that contribute to that nation, but then there's also big cities that really drive that nation. So,
Okay, we're done installing.
all right. So here is it saying, hey, you never installed from this thing before. We're actually installing from a Fedora mirror. It's like, are you sure you want to install this? You know, do you trust this mirror? Hit yes. Now it's installing. And we're going through. Okay, woohoo! We are done installing all the stuff. So if we go to our website, is everything going to work? Nope. Why is it not going to work?
Nah.
Yeah, we didn't turn on anything. We just ran through the install wizard. We didn't tell it to run. So, what we're going to do now, I should look at my notes here. We are going to set the services to start with the system. Remember that check config thing that I was talking about? It's like enabling the checkbox on it to start at system startup. So we're going to go check config, and then we're going to do HTTPD space on. Says click that checkbox for me to start HTTPD at start. So when I reboot my server, that it actually runs. Does that make sense? Guys got it?
Are we doing 12A and 12B or 12B?
I'm sorry. I'm on 12. Well, yeah, 12A, 12B. We're on step 12. I'm doing them in a different order. Then check config MySQL on. Okay? So we can look at that and just say, all right, good, it's on. But the problem is, we didn't restart our server to do it, to tell them to turn on. And we don't want to do that either. There's another command to tell the services to start or stop. Okay? So let's do, I also have in my notes, because I have the, remember I changed my order and how I do things. All right, let's dive into this. Okay, let's do cd / var, actually not, etc / httpd, enter. Does everybody know what what etc is? Kevin, you can't answer this. Remember last week's thing? I believe I put it in there. Let's see here. I think I had handout notes. Yep.
Abbreviation is the long answer, right?
What's that?
A Latin
Yeah.
abbreviation is the long answer.
Yeah. Rob and Bill and Matt, if you guys didn't get these notes, these are on server side up as well. So you can get that. But right here, okay, stores, services, and FS tab. FS tab's like the first file that it hits, and it's a system critical file of mounting devices, the whole 9 yards. So it's saying, okay, where am I getting started? And it pulls from there. But etc is where all of our services are stored. And then we have var. Log files, mail spool, miscellaneous system variations. Very important word. That means that inside of that folder, those files are going to change, they're going to grow, they're going to shrink, so they split that up. So Apache and its configuration is located within etc. So the config files are located within etc / httpd /conf/httpd.conf. Don't worry, I'll put that up on the screen soon. So that's where, when Apache fires up, that is its main critical file that it looks at, and it loads everything up. Okay? And then the document root for our web server is located in var www HTML. Does that make sense? So even though that we're spinning the service up in Etsy and it's loading that up, our files are located in var www HTML. It's the same concept of you install Microsoft Word into program files and your documents are saved in your My Documents. Same concept. Make sense? Okay, so let's look at root. And if I do pwd, it shows me I'm in Etsy httpd. So if I do an ls, I got a conf directory and a conf.d directory. And we have some modules. And then we have log. I don't even know what the run thing does. But let's go to cd conf. Alright? cd means change directory. So we're in there. So pwd, we're in Etsy httpd conf. Alright? So ls, we have httpd.conf. So we can use Nano or Vim. Those are our text editors for guys that weren't with us last week. So I'm going to use Nano httpd.conf. And look at this thing. Jesus. 991 lines of just crap that you can enable. But notice this. Remember, I said that Apache is one of the most well-documented software ever. This is a very special Linux program. Notice that it tells you in every configuration line on what it does. You know, so if we get down to, let's see here, like, you know, var www CGI bin should be changed to whatever your script alias CGI directories exist. I mean, it tells you on how to configure it within the configuration file. Super helpful. So one thing that we want to make a change to, if you're in Nano, this is Nano only, we can search. So if you look down on the bottom here, we have Control G is get help, Control O is write out or save. But I want to use the where is, so hit Control W. Then you have this search thing here, and I want to look for allow override. So I can just do allow over. It's case sensitive. Actually, I don't think it is. But I got to allow override none. I don't want that one. So I'm going to hit Control W again, and see how it says search allow over. It's already saved in there. I'm just going to press enter again. Now, this is important. Each directory to which Apache has access can be configured with respect to which services and features are allowed and or disabled in that directory. First, we configure the default to be a very restrictive set of features. I don't know if that's the one that I want either. Ah, this is the one that I want. Allow override controls what directives may be placed in .htaccess files. It can be all, none, or any combination of the keywords. Control W. Yep. And then you should be online. If I do Control C, it tells me my cursor position. Right here, it tells me that. And I'm on line 327. Yep. And 327. 393. 293, so hit Control W again, put in allow over, and then press enter. And we're going to change this to all.
How do you find the line number again?
Control C.
Okay.
Oops, I just hit Control V, which is page down. So if you hit Control C, it pulls up line 324 out of 992 and 32% the way through. I'm on column 1, character out of the whole document. You're at what, 323? So is that where I'm supposed to be? Go to 327. Arrow down here. See where it says allow override? Change that allow override to all.
With a capital letter?
Yep. And then to save, we hit Control O, and it says file name to write. Press enter. Yeah. Control O, all of your commands are down at the bottom of the screen. So you have Control O as write out, which is save.
Oh, for save.
Yeah, I know, hey? Here, let me come see your screen.
Okay, show me where it says save in any of those.
Right out.
No, write out. Oh, wait, you might have... Did you increase your font size?
No?
Alright, oh, you already hit Control O. So it says file name to write. Right here, this white bar here is your status. So if you hit enter, wrote 991 lines.
Oh, okay.
Now it's bringing back to what commands you have.
Oh, write out is save?
Yep. Okay, so,
Right here, I think, is where I got behind.
oh, you did CD slash space Etsy. It's CD space slash Etsy.
Space or just slash?
Slash. Because this is change directory and then which directory we want to go to. So if you do an ls, it shows what we have here. We want to go to conf. So cd conf. All right, enter, and then we want to do nano, nano, space, ht, and then hit tab, and it fills it in because that's the only one in there. So httpd.conf. There you go. And I gotta go press the button here. So now hit Control W and hit allow override.
That means where is?
Yep, where is? And hit allow or type in allow over. No, all together. Enter. And that's not it. Hit Control W again and press enter. Because it saves it. So search again. Yep, hit enter. And
Then this needs to be changed, right?
yeah, hit Control C. See what line number we're at. Yep, 323. Yep, so that one we want to change to all. And Nano is the easiest text editor. Vim is goofy.
So when we do where is, we're just looking for a line of text?
Yep, we're just searching.
In this configuration file?
Yeah, the Control W is like the Control F in Notepad.
What did we do to get in the, so we actually opened up this file?
Yeah, we open it up through Nano, which is a text editor.
Also, when we did
Nano space http.conf, we said Nano open this config file. It's a text file.
okay.
So then hit Control O, enter, and then what we want to do is hit Control X to close out. Oh, I'm sorry. That probably would help. What this does is we just went into the config file, and I don't think we'll be using this today, but the allow override allows us to, actually I'm sorry, we probably will be using it. It allows us to use our htaccess file to make some changes to the web server. I'm going to go into what we did. This is going to make a lot more sense as soon as we close out. So everybody hit Control X to close out. All right, you saved it. Everything's good. Now if we do pwd, write this down. The master HTTPD configuration file is this. Etsy httpd conf httpd.conf. Remember that. That is the most important thing to remember. Okay, you will be going back into that. There's over 9,000 things on what we can do with that file. So that is the master configuration file. So let's go up one folder. We're going to go to this folder here, etc httpd. cd etc httpd. You guys got it? etc httpd. That one right there. Got it? There, is that easier? See, change settings, chance. All right. Hit pwd. What directory are you in? Okay, root. This is like the prompt. Then we have the bash sign, and this is the commands. Yeah. So hit cd space etc/httpd. Now you're there. cd's change directory. Okay. Huh? Okay. So now if we do ls, this is going to list all the files and folders in here. Notice we have conf and conf.d. How more damn confusing could you get? Name the same thing, conf.d. Well, let's go in there. cd conf.d. And how do I know which directory I'm in? There's two ways. pwd and looking at this here. I'm in the conf.d directory. Look on the screen, Bill. That tells me I'm in the conf.d directory. Mitchum.
My program says no such file or directory.
Do pwd. Where are you at? pwd, print working directory. It just says print working directory. Print what directory I'm in. Undo a line. Yep. Yeah, so you can do cd space ... and it takes me back up.
Was absolute, where no matter where you were on
Yep.
there. Yeah.
Yep. So there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts that if you go through the Linux thing, I would suggest even after this, go through it. We covered a lot of that stuff too. But you guys are doing good today. So
But with only a few exceptions, this stuff holds with Windows, DOS. With Windows stuff, you see this stuff on hypertext
Yep.
links too.
Yep.
And the logic is all the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you do pwd, it should look exactly like mine. All right? So let's do an ls. Let's figure out what the hell's in here. So we have php.conf, proxyajp.conf, and welcome.conf. Okay, remember that directory. I want to show you guys something. So let's actually do what we're supposed to do. Let's start the damn web server, okay? Service, service http d space start. Got that? Service space httpd space start. And starting httpd, okay. All right? Now let's go to our website. Linux, what server am I on? I don't know, 11. .learnit.local. Woohoo! How many of you have this page? Everybody? What time do you guys got until today? All right, because we can part this out. Kevin, you're looking at me. Should we?
Because they're on mine.
I'm on.
No, I'm fast.
Yeah, noob. All right. So remember, let's hop around the system a little bit. Let's get out of this conf directory. Remember I told you that things were stored in the var? So cd, what's up,
So
Mitchell?
we basically just installed the Apache server. And that's why we can.
Yep, that's now, and we started it. We installed MySQL, but we didn't start it. PHP, I'll go over on how that's running soon. Okay, so cd, var, www, html. Remember, I told you that all the files are stored in here. If I do an ls, it's blank. So how in the hell is that blue page coming up? I wouldn't lie to you. It's in the I'm serious. You put all your stuff in the HTML folder. How many of you have used FTP to manage your website? Matt's the winner for the day. All right, he's the brainiac. So FTP, this is where it would take you. You can change it, but by default, if you had your web server set here, this is where your website would be located. So how the hell is that page appearing? Remember that conf.d directory. Let's switch back to it. cd space / etc / now I can use my keyboard shortcuts, remember, too. I can hit H, tab. But if I hit tab, there's a lot of them that equal H. So I have HTTPD over here. So if I do HT, automatically puts that in. Conf.tab. You see how you can navigate that real fast? It's a helpful feature. Okay, so now we're in the conf.d directory. Remember, we have these files, php.conf, proxy.agp.conf, and welcome.conf. But what's the number one file that everybody puts in and never reads? The README. Well, maybe we should get started there. So let's open up our text editor, or we can use, what's our command that we used last week? Less. Less is something that you can use to see less on the screen. Because otherwise, like, you can use a text editor to view it, but that's a text editor. You can use less to read it. It shows less on the screen. You can arrow up, arrow down, and then just press Q to close out of it. So let's do less, space, capital R, tab. And it brings up our README. This is all that's in there, okay? This Apache directory holds Apache 2 module-specific configuration files. Any files in this directory which have the .conf extension will be processed as Apache configuration files. Files are processed in alphabetical order, so if using configuration directives which depend on, say, mod Perl being loaded, ensure that these are placed in a file name later than the sort order than perl.conf. That make any sense to anybody? It's exactly what's going to happen right here. When Apache loads up, where's that one marker that I had? That was an awesome marker. This is good. So when Apache loads up, it's going to, this marker sucks. It's going to /etc /httpd/conf /httpd.conf. Remember I told you write that one down. But then we have this conf.d directory. So after it loads this configuration file, it loads it up into our configuration. This is our Apache Ultimate configuration file. What it does is it loads the httpd.d.conf into this directory, okay? Or into the Apache configuration. But then it goes and hits that conf.d directory and executes anything with a .conf extension. So if we hit Q to close out of this, and we hit less, W, and then hit tab to open up welcome.conf, oh, look at that. This configuration file enables the default welcome page if there's no default index page present for the root URL. To disable the welcome page, comment out all the lines below. So what it's doing, since it is welcome.conf, it's tagging it on. So it's loading up httpd.conf, which is the main configuration file, and this welcome.conf on it. Now I can move that into here, but it wouldn't make sense because I can enable or disable my configuration. If we hit Q, we also have, if we do an ls, we have the php.conf. So we can look at the php.conf. And this is adding all the handlers that it needs. It's got a PHP extension. What's gonna run it? It loads our modules at the top, so it can handle PHP. So it's taking that on as well. And then we have that other one as well. So you get how it's tagging them on? This is actually wrong because remember it's going in alphabetical order. PHP goes first, welcome goes last. But if we go back, you press Q to quit out of less. If we go back to the welcome, notice what it's doing. Location match root, and if there's nothing there, it's going to run error / noindex.html. And then there's inside that error thing, they can set up an alias where it's actually in a different location. We'll get into that a different day. But it's going to run that noindex.html. So that's where that welcome page is coming. So go ahead, press Q, and then what we're going to do is we're going to remove that file. So hit rm space welcome, and then just hit tab. It's going to say, do you want to remove the welcome.conf? Yes. All right. Now I made a change. All right, let's try to go back here. I refresh the page, it's still there. What the hell? Well, remember, this is executed at start. So it's going to hit all these directories and load it up into memory. That configuration's running. So what we got to do is restart it. Now there's a difference. There's restart and reload. Reload will keep the service running, the HTTPD service running, and it will just reload the configuration file. Restart will stop the service and start the service instantly if your configuration file is okay. Sometimes it might take a minute or two depending on if you got a bunch of stuff on it. So that's important. Reload will be if a request comes in, it'll just, and it's got the old configuration, that one's going to have the old configuration. It'll process the reload and then take in the next request and then give them the new configuration. So what we need to do is if we do service HTTPD restart, and it stopped it and restarted it. So now if I go to my page, hopefully it's not a cache browser thing, there we go. Index of root directory. Okay? And now what we can do, even though that we're in the conf.d directory, right? I can do nano.
Mine is still working.
It might be cache. Did you restart it? You removed the configuration file, right?
I did.
You restarted the service.
I did.
Clear your internet browser settings. So even though that I'm in the conf.d directory, I can, from here, create an index file inside of our var www. So nano var www html index.html. And I can create that and then put your name, Jay's web server. And then Control O, Control X. And if I go to learnit.local, There's. Oh no, that command, that's the directory. Remember? Right here, this is what you need to type in. Nano space slash var, because it's in the variation directory. Okay, it's one on, huh? Control O to write it. Control X to close out of nano. All right, what do you guys got here? Rob's web server.
I've done control.
Oh, I'm sorry. File name to write. This is the status. So press enter, and I'll hit Control X. Yeah, I'm sorry. I hit enter without even noticing it. So now go to your website. Your server. Huh? Yeah, there we go.
So you hit Control Enter.
Control O, enter, Control X. Oh, we got Aaron taking off. Oh, he's even using Vim like a boss. F5.
So can you put HTML code?
Uh-oh. Yeah, you can. This is your index.html file. So Apache's configured right now to look at for index.html.
So if we had a text file, never mind. Somehow we would have to upload it, name it that, put it in that directory.
Yep.
And that's our home.
We can build an about us.html and link it from there to the about us page.
What does it mean when it says port 80? You know, is that same port like how we would refer to?
TCP port 80, that's what HTTP uses.
Right.
So that's what it's using right now to communicate. So it's 103. I'm sure you guys want to get out of here. That's okay. We didn't get as much as we like, but I think you guys learned a lot today. So we'll keep the excitement rolling. Next Friday, we'll dive into building the MySQL server. Everybody circle where we left off, what number we're on. We're starting at number 15 next time. So we'll get into building MySQL.
We kind of skipped number 13.
Which one's that one?
Edit HTTP. Oh, we're doing that. Yeah, what's all the people live?
Oh, keep alive is, sorry, those are my notes. That's like, so it keeps the session alive.
Name virtual host.
Yeah, virtual host, we won't get in those. That'll be more intermediate stuff. Virtual host, because, okay, you're running a website. Remember, DNS, right? We point it to an IP address. What happens if I want another website? Does it make sense to run one website on its own IP address? Hell no, we'd be out of IPs, especially if you're just running, Dan's blog that nobody wants to visit. You know, like what a waste of an IP address. So, so what we can do is we can actually use those virtual hosts and say, okay, if the request is danscrappyblog.com, that it's going to go to Dan's Crappy Blog, but then it can go to jaysAwesomeblog.com. It'll be on the same server, but it's going to a different directory. We'll get into that later and kind of piece it all. Because what we're going to be doing, I don't know about this semester. How many of you are graduating this semester? Awesome. Good. Because next semester, I'm planning, I say that we do like a 6-hour day, 8-hour day. We come in, we program routers, we program switches, we build web servers, we build Exchange servers, and we build the internet in here. Run the cable, all of it, and actually have the internet constructed in here. How awesome would that be? That's what I'm talking about. It might take more than 8 hours. So we'll plan a couple hackathon days where we just sit down, put on some tunes, and be a little bit more relaxed. You know, it won't be me yakking the whole time.
Is there we need to exit out or do we just close
Just go ahead and type in exit, and it'll exit out of your session. Please write down what server you are so that I don't delete it. I'm going to hold these. If you could just on the sign-in sheet next to your name, write the server number. That way I can keep tabs on who's who. So, all right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it very much.